anglais, je passe au canal français.
Ok, sai bene cosa mancare.
¿Cómo van a?
Sono davanti.
Testing like this.
Sono davanti.
Test, mic test. Testing. Testing, 1, 2. Testing. 1, 2.
Right. Moly.
I call to order the 787th meeting of the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The committee will now proceed with Agenda Item 5, consideration of a report submitted by parties to the Convention under Article 35. Today, the committee will consider the initial report of Kiribati. I have the honor to warmly welcome the distinguished delegation headed by Mrs. Kauro Niti, Secretary, Minister of Justice, who will introduce the State Party report. Captioning, international sign, and interpretation in English, French, Spanish, and Arabic are available. This meeting is also webcast on UN Web TV. The consideration of the initial report will be held in 2 meetings over 2 consecutive days, each of which will last for 3 hours. Today's consideration of the report follows a back-to-back round of questions and follow-up questions. Then the delegation will be given the opportunity to respond to those questions and follow-up questions. First, the round of back-to-back questions will address the first cluster or group of articles of the Convention, Article 1 to 9 and 31 to 33, for 6 minutes, which with a 15 minutes break, followed by a second round of back-to-back questions on cluster 1 for 30 minutes. Once the first cluster is finished, the first round of the back-to-back questions will address the second cluster, Article 10 to 20, for 40 minutes. Then tomorrow, for the second meeting, we will continue with the rounds of back-to-back questions for the second cluster and third cluster, Article 21 to 30, following the same structure. Finally, we will close the consideration of the initial report of Kiribati with closing remarks from the head of the delegation and the coordinator of the task force. I wish to draw the delegation's attention to the needs for careful time management. When a response cannot be provided, the delegation may submit the pending information in writing within 24 hours from the end of dialogue and provide it in Word format. I would like to remind the delegation that the introductory statement should not exclude 20 minutes. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this meeting is planned to take place online, and then of course, as expected, we will experience technical issues like the one that is currently happening. So, well, we will do what we can given the technical constraints. This meeting will last until 1 p.m. today, and tomorrow we'll have the second part of the dialogue. So, yes, we need to really, stick to what will happen, no? Sometimes, the connections will be okay, sometimes the connections will fail. This is where we are right now. So we're waiting for the reestablishment of the connection. Hopefully it will be sorted out soon. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Committee, distinguished members of the committee, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings from Kiribati. It's an honor for me on behalf of the government of Kiribati to present our report under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or CRPD. As a small island developing state, deeply vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, we welcome the recent advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, which amplifies the voices and realities of states like ours, including those of persons with disabilities. Since ratifying the CRPD in 2013, Kiribati has made steady progress toward promoting disability rights and inclusion. The National Disability Policy 2018 to 25 provides the framework for our efforts with a focus on accessibility, inclusive education, healthcare, employment, and empowerment. We are proud of our initiatives to integrate children with disabilities into mainstream education. Through our inclusive education policy, we have trained teachers, developed accessible learning materials, and promoted inclusive teaching practices. A key institution in this journey is the Special School in Tarao, which serves children with diverse disabilities. It offers individualized learning and training, access to assistive technologies, skilled teachers and support personnel, and a nurturing and safe learning environment. This has led to tangible improvements in academic outcomes, self-esteem, peer interaction, and future prospects. However, we acknowledge challenges remain, such as limited resources, infrastructure gaps, and social stigma, which we are committed to addressing. We highly value our collaboration with the Tuanatua, the National Organization of Persons with Disabilities. Their partnership has been instrumental in advocating for legislative and policy change, delivering community support and outreach, raising disability awareness, and ensuring that persons with disabilities are meaningfully involved in decisions affecting them. This partnership embodies the spirit of nothing about us without us. The Kiribati Building Act 2024 now mandates accessibility standards in all public buildings. We have also improved access to public spaces, transport, and services through the provision of ramps, accessible toilets, sign language interpretation, and braille signage. To support individuals unable to work due to significant disabilities, the government introduced a disability support allowance with 2,569 beneficiaries receiving a total of 10.645 million Australian dollars by the year 2024. Our Ministry of Health and Medical Services has enhanced access to healthcare through the Tomorrow Rehabilitation Service, providing specialist care and assistive devices, and inclusion of disability considerations in the non-communicable diseases program. Vocational training and employment programs have opened opportunities for persons with disabilities. Our Employment and Industrial Relations Code 2015 prohibits discrimination against persons with disabilities in employment settings, a key step toward economic empowerment. While we celebrate progress, we are mindful of ongoing challenges, resource constraints, infrastructure limitations, and social stigma remain barriers. But we remain steadfast in our commitments to uphold the rights, dignity, and full inclusion of persons with disabilities. In conclusion, we thank the committee for its continued support and guidance. We look forward to your recommendations, which will help strengthen our implementation of the convention. Geneva stands ready to work in partnership with persons with disabilities, civil society, and international allies to build a society that is inclusive, just, and accessible for all. In closing, I offer our traditional blessing of the Nauri Te Roi o Te Tapamoa, meaning peace, good health, and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, distinguished delegation. On behalf of the committee, I thank you again, Your Excellency, for your introductory statement. We will now begin the first round of back-to-back question and answers regarding cluster 1. This segment will be last 60 minutes until 11:13, and only members of the task force will participate. There are 3 members of the task force for Kiribati: Ms. Rosemary Cases, Mr. Hiroshi Tamon, and Ms. Immaculada Palencia Porero. I will now call upon Ms. Rosemary Cases, the coordinator of the task force, for her opening remarks. Then the task force will initiate the round of the questions for Article 129 and 31 to 33, and the delegation will have the opportunity to respond immediately after the question have been raised. Ms. Rosemary Cases, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Maoli, Your Excellencies, distinguished representatives and civil society delegates. On behalf of my task force colleagues, Mr. Hiroshi Tamon and Ms. Immaculada Placencia Porero, I warmly welcome the head of delegation and the other members of the delegation from Kiribati, who are joining us today here and online from Tawara for our constructive dialogue. We appreciate the States Party's comprehensive report and response to the list of issues. I would like to acknowledge and thank civil society, most especially organisations of persons with disabilities, in particular Titoa Matoa, Kiribati Deaf Association, Kiribati Association for People Who Are Blind or Vision Impaired, and Tangiria I Kaiori Association, and their regional partner, Pacific Disability Forum, who have contributed to the parallel reports. These reports and contribution are invaluable to our dialogue and will inform the basis of our work over the next 2 days. As an Australian, it's an honour and a privilege to be able to welcome friends from Oceania, our beautiful corner of the world. Kiribati is the first country to see the dawn, a small island nation of the South Pacific, an area of some of the most idyllic and tranquil environments in the world, with a warm and welcoming community. Yet this small island nation is confronted by the effects of climate change, the impact of wider geopolitical struggles and upheaval, diverse geographical locations and economies of scale. This presents unique challenges for respecting, protecting, and fulfilling human rights. The essence of our dialogue with Kiribati is to understand the challenges the country faces in meeting its obligations under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and to identify opportunities for ensuring that people with disabilities can exercise their human rights. In this regard, the committee is pleased to note that Kiribati has a framework in which to take action to progress the rights of persons with disabilities. And this includes a draft National Disability Policy and Action Plan, a disability inclusive division within the Ministry of Women, Youth, Sport and Social Affairs, a joint implementation plan for climate change and disaster risk reduction, a legislative review undertaken by UNSCAP in 2022, resulting in recommendations for CRPD harmonisation, and a disability monograph from 2025, which contains data to identify and resource areas for action. While this framework is there, the committee will inquire as to the effectiveness of your implementation measures to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities are realised in Kiribati. I'll now commence with the round of questions for Cluster 1. So focusing on Articles 1 to 4, there seems to be a disconnect between commitments made to implement the Convention and the practical action to achieve this implementation. In particular, I note the following. There have been several reviews of the Constitution, but disability has still not been recognised as a protected category under Section 3, nor is it included as a ground of discrimination under Section 15. The recommendations of the 2022 legislative review conducted by UNSCAP for harmonisation of laws with the Convention have not been implemented. One of a suite of legislative reviews across Pacific Island states providing an authoritative analysis. We understand the second review recommendations don't appear to be compatible with the Convention and not of the same quality. The proposed Disability Inclusion Act, noted in your replies to the list of issues, has not been developed. The National Disability Policy Action Plan, Disability Policy and Action Plan 2018 to 2021 has been revised a few times, but remains in draft form and has not been finalised nor endorsed by government. Can you clarify what the barriers are to finalising and implementing these actions? Do you have a time frame to ensure these actions are undertaken? And is there a specific disability allocation across all ministries in the budget to implement disability inclusion across government? I'd like to hand it back to our colleagues in Tarawa.
Mary. Mary, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So I invite the delegations to respond. Thank you so much.
Mary, my name is Janiki Nemta from the Attorney General's office. And thank you for the question. Yes, sir. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
We understand that we haven't progressed on the commitments to amend the constitution and other legislation. However, there's a plan to carry out that activity once the budget is available, and we aim to have the amendment to the constitution in the next House of Parliament. Yes, that's. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. Ms. Cases, you have the floor.
Could I, thank you very much for your answer. Can I just check? That's the Constitution. What about the other legislative reviews? So what is the status on the proposed Disability Inclusion Act?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Rota from the Disability Inclusion Unit within the Ministry of Women, Youth, Sports and Social Affairs. Thank you for the question, and we have made progress in reviewing legislation and promoting organizational cultures that comply with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, the CRPD. Our Disability Inclusion Division is assessing and implementing strategies to bridge gaps. Recently, we have conducted legislative review, which has been released. However, there are a few barriers that we have faced in implementing the policy or the review. As of now, the current progress that was initially done by the previous teams or the previous officers, we have faced an issue with staff turnover, where there's a constant change of staff, which have slackened the progress of the CRPD, the Disability Act. However, we are very investing on this issue, which is to train our staff. For example, we have covered a few training on CRPD and office skills, and we are also keen to explore other options to fast track the implementation of the Disability Act. For information, members of the committee, through the Disability Inclusion Division, we are very much interested and keen in advocating and finding implementing strategies to be able to acquire the acts or establish the acts as soon as possible. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll proceed on to my second question. A fundamental element of the convention is the close consultation and active involvement of people with disabilities through their representative organisations. The committee is aware that consultation with organisations of people with disability does occur, but often in an ad hoc and piecemeal way. In some cases, development projects and programs have the appearance of partnerships with organisations of people with disability, but in practical terms, there's no really active involvement occurring. Do you have any plans of establishing a formal mechanism to operate across all ministries to ensure the close consultation and active involvement of people with disabilities through their representative organisation, including those from outer islands?
Thank you again for the question. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for your information, there has been a significant increase of inclusion of persons with disabilities in policy and decision making. A few initiatives that we have made to ensure encouragement and engagement of persons with disabilities include Model Inclusive School Review, which is chaired by the DOMETO, which is a National Association for People with Disability, and as well as Paralympic Committee and a few other bodies or groups, working groups that were directly involved the people with disability. For information, in every policy review or establishment, organizations of people with disability members are consulted, including in the outer islands, where persons living with disabilities are encouraged to participate in consultations.
The interpreters apologise, but sound quality does not allow for interpretation.
Oh, sorry. Madam Chair, in every review or establishment of policies, the organization of peoples with disability members are consulted, including in outer islands where persons living with disabilities are encouraged to participate in consultations. For information, Madam Chair, we are keen in introducing and we are keen in delivering the CRPD training, especially to the frontline service providers, so that they are more aware of the importance and the importance of persons with disability, especially when they are doing their policy review. Currently, the issue that we are experiencing, especially in the outer islands, during consultations with people with disabilities, is transportation. Most of the transportations that were used in the outer islands were not accessible to persons with disabilities. However, to ensure people from outer islands attend consultations, the government have plans to seek funding from outer island for outer island transportation that can accommodate accessible transports for people with disabilities and engage them in policy making. I thank you for your question.
Thank you very much. I'd like to move on to Article 5. We note that Kiribati doesn't have an anti-discrimination legal framework to protect people with disability from all forms of discrimination, and that includes the denial of reasonable accommodation. So reasonable accommodation is only outlined in the National Disability Policy and Action Plan, but the definition is not compatible with the definition contained in the Convention. How does Kiribati intend to protect people with disabilities from discrimination and ensure the provision of reasonable accommodation in line with the Convention? Do you intend to establish an anti-discrimination legal framework? For example, we understand that privately run van operators providing a bus service often will not stop or wait for passengers with disability. What avenues do people with disability have to complain and seek redress for these types of issues?
Thank you for the question. My name is Tare Brechtefeld, and I am a state attorney at the Office of the Attorney General. Our efforts to aim to amend discriminatory terminology in existing laws and align them with the Convention. Notable progress have been made in the following areas. Firstly, our inclusive education laws have been instrumental in promoting accessible schooling. The Education Bill 2013 and Inclusive Education Policy 2015 mandates accessible education and prohibits exclusion based solely on disability. Specifically, Section 19 of the Education Bill provides for students with special educational needs. Additionally, the Early Care and Education Act 2017 requires non-discrimination in preschool services with allowances for reasonable accommodation feasibility. Furthermore, our employment rights framework has been strengthened. The Employment and Industrial Relations Code 2015 explicitly bans employment discriminations on disability grounds, as outlined in Section 4, Subsection 3.
I'd like to stop our friends in Kiribati. I'd just like to come back to focus on the question. The question was actually about developing an anti-discrimination legal framework. So we appreciate the work that you're doing in terms of negative terminology about people with disability and the work that you're doing in education, but we will come to that. Can we come back to the fact that there isn't an anti-discrimination complaint system within Kiribati? And the specific question is there an intention to cover discrimination law with an individual complaints mechanism?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you for the question. So in response to a question in regards to complaint mechanism that is required to be established within the Ministry of Women, Youth, Sport and Social Affairs, we very welcome all complaints that were delivered, especially from people with disability. For your information on implementing or developing a framework for complaint mechanism, the Ministry of Women, Youth, or the MWISA welcomes complaints concerning discrimination or human rights violation. And currently, we receive such complaints through phone communication or in-person submissions. To enhance accessibility and effectiveness, the MWISA Disability Inclusion Division will explore and initiate improved complaint mechanisms in the near future. For instance, we are planning to install a free toll-free hotline that will be established to ensure that all complaints reach the responsible officer promptly, facilitating timely mitigations of issues. Additionally, the division will also consider implementing a dedicated online portal for submitting complaints and partnership with organizations of persons with disability to amplify their voices whenever there's any complaint that will be raised from their side. With that, we will also plan to train our staff on handling complaint sensitivity and efficiently, especially to deal with different categories of impairments. These measures aim to strengthen accountability and ensure that the rights of persons with disability are protected and promoted. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for your information about administrative complaints within the government department. It still suggests to me that you don't have any active plans for protection mechanisms that can protect people with disability from the actions of non-state actors. Can I move on to Kiribati and women and girls with disabilities? We understand that Kiribati has a strong focus on gender equality. I'd like to understand how the issues for women and girls with disabilities are included in key national gender policies, such as the Gender Equality and Women's Development Policy and the National Action Plan to Eliminate Sexual and Gender-Based Violence. How are organisations of women with disabilities supported and resourced to engage in design and implementation of these policies? How does the gender team in the Ministry for Women, Youth, Sport and Social Affairs develop expertise in identifying and responding to the specific issues and concerns of women and girls with disabilities.
Thank you for the question. My name is Beide, and I work as the Women's Economic Empowerment Officer within the Ministry of Women, in the Ministry of within the Ministry of Women. And thank you for the question. The Women's Development Division within the Ministry of Women has a Gender Equality and Women's Development Policy 2019 to 2022. And in this policy, the policy is guided by the CRPD and also recognizes that in addition to women, there are population groups who are particularly vulnerable to not accessing opportunities and human rights, which one of these groups is the men and women with disabilities. This policy also defines gender equality as the interests, needs, and priorities of women and men, and the diversity of the populations within these groups, such as old, young, persons with disabilities, are also taken into consideration. In addition to that, the gender policy, through its women's economic empowerment priority, also targets and ensure participation of disadvantaged women, including widows and women with disabilities, in income generation activities to address challenges experienced by vulnerable groups. However, during the implementation of the Women's Economic Empowerment Program, there are no, unfortunately, there are no record for or data identifying representative of women with disabilities joining the program. This is due to the lack of data collection as well as the monitoring and evaluation framework of the policy. With this issue, the Women's Development Division will ensure the inclusion and strengthening of data collection and monitoring and evaluation of the policy will be included in the revised policy. And also the Women's Development Division will include in the revised policy a more inclusive plan that will directly target women with disabilities. Another policy, which is the draft, which is the Eliminating Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Policy, which has just been drafted in 2022. This revised policy is meant for 2022 to 2032. And as I already mentioned, it is in the draft. This draft revised policy, through its commitments to, which is on strengthening efforts to improve gender-based violence prevention, focuses on the incorporation of the prevention of violence against women and girls into disabled school curriculum to help young disability generation to know their safety, rights, and where to report or seek help, and to empower them to speak out or voice themselves when they are experiencing sexual and gender-based violence. Under this same policy commitment, it also involves the Kiribati National Council of Persons with Disabilities as one of the civil society to engage in the prevention of violence against women and girls within the Kiribati context. In addition to that, the revised draft policy also supports the advancement of engaging men and young men in the men's behavioral change program to address additional barriers and assumptions about sexuality of people with disabilities, as well as supporting ministries to mainstream gender-based violence in their ministries' strategic operation procedures, or SOPs, ministries' strategic
plans, protocols in order to eliminate gender-based violence against women. The revised draft policy also look into the delivery of victim management training, which also include the training on dealing with victims of people with disabilities to frontline service providers or SafeNet members, as well as delivering training to domestic violence counselors on specific skills for rape survivors, child abuse survivors, and trauma cases survivors, including survivors with disabilities. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a very similar question around children with disabilities and how they're included in the design and implementation. And I mean, I'm conscious of both in terms of gender and children, that there's limitations in what you can do. The focus tends to be a bit disconnected. The focus on gender and youth is very strong within the department, yet for disability, we've got one acting officer, and disability isn't even recognised within the ministry title. It's captured within the social affairs. So I would really like to also understand how children with disability are picked up in the relevant design and implementation of national policies and programs focused at children and youth.
Thank you for the question. My name is Tanako, and I'm representing the social welfare from the Ministry of Women, Youth, Sports, and Social Affairs. In response to the question that is being raised, with regard to the children with disabilities, they have been included in every activity or in every policy that is for the children. And we have with the acts that we have policies in place, all children, including children with disabilities, are being included in those acts and policies. Thank you.
I'll move on because of time. What I'd like to get a sense of, you talked about training within the departments. What I'd like to get a sense of is the work that might be done by Kiribati to address stigma and prejudice within the community. So the work we're aware of awareness raising about the rights of people with disabilities have been quite ad hoc and piecemeal, and on many occasions have not been conducted in partnership with organisations of people with disability. Your National Disability Policy and Action Plan identifies awareness raising as a key priority area. Are there plans to strengthen this area and ensure awareness raising is sufficiently resourced, conducted in partnership with organisations of people with disabilities? churches and other faith-based groups, local communities, including the outer islands.
Thank you for Chen in regards to integrating the TTM or the organizations of people with disabilities in our consultation procedures. We are pleased to inform the committee that as of now, we are keen in improving our relationship with the organizations of people with disability. In fact, whenever we have any initiatives in regards to the organizations, we usually turn back to them for their advice or their brief or their for their informations, or if they have any strategies in regards to consultations. As of now, there has been there's not much policy making that's been done within the ministry. However, we are pleased to tell the committee that we will review the Kiribati National Disability Policy that is yet to lapse, which is the KNDP 2022 to 2025. However, for this task or for this policy, we will create a working group, and as part of our plan, the organizations of people with disabilities are one of our key stakeholders in initiating any consultations on this policy. As well as we are within one ministry with the NGO division who oversees the registrations and supports of non-governmental organizations, including churches. We have planned to promote disability inclusion within the division, that is to integrate disability equality into traditional and church leaders programs, to provide training and capacity building initiatives for churches, leaders, and NGOs on disability rights and inclusion, as well as to foster relationship or partnership between organizations of persons with disabilities and faith-based organizations to promote a mutual understandings and supports to persons with disability. So the Disability Inclusion Division will work closely with the NGO division to ensure that disability perspectives are mainstreamed in all programs and activities. These collaborations aim to promote a more inclusive and equitable society for persons with disability. Thank you for the question.
I'd like to move on to a critical area for Kiribati, and that's accessibility. Inaccessibility in many areas is problematic, including in transport, shipping services, jetties, wharves, and the airport and aeroplanes, and even the offices of the Ministry of Women, Youth Support and Social Affairs is not accessible. How is Kiribati addressing this inaccessibility? How do you work with donors and development partners to ensure disability inclusive infrastructure development? And this also goes to your development of the accessibility standards. Are there enforcement mechanisms for the building code and the standards?
Thank you, Madam, for your question. Maria from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Sustainable Energy. And
Delegation, now
according
we
to
are
your
reconnect. Would you reply again from your speech beginning?
all right, sorry.
Now connected. Delegation, please respond to the question from the Ms. Cases.
Thank you for the question. I'll restart.
Yes,
My name is
please.
Maria from. All right. My name is Maria from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Sustainable Energy. And according to your
The interpreters apologize. Sound quality does not allow for interpretation.
Delegation, would you speak loudly for the interpretation?
sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but would you speak more loudly and slowly?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. In the Ministry of Infrastructure and Sustainable Energy, we are in the process of implementing our national building code for 2024, and in this mandate, it also tries to improve the accessibility for people with disability. And one of the achievements for our ministry, which is in commence, is amending its standard drawings or standard designs for buildings, which are for public use. And that is by providing ramps and railings and more accessible amenities which can accommodate the people with disability. And by that, we are also improving the existing infrastructures by providing assistance in conducting structural assessments, which can give them recommendations if they do not have amenities which will accommodate disability. Thank you, Madam, for your question.
Can I just ask our colleagues in Kiribati what the mechanisms are if third-party actors and the state party aren't meeting the standards that are set by either the building code or the accessibility standards?
Thank you for the question. And according to our partners, and if I'm addressing the question correctly, well, we are in progress of working together to provide services which can give more scope and ideas towards filling the gap of having people with less qualifications in assessing those mandates for improvement. As one of our challenges is qualifications in specific fields and mobility for materials to the scattered islands. Thank you.
So there's no clear enforcement mechanism being built into either the standards or the building code?
Apologies. There is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's mentioned in our current building code, which is section ND, and under our section ND mentions the accessibility and standards which complies to the standard complies with the standard designs of the standard code and application of construction to buildings which are used in the public and for other people in residentials as well. Thank you.
That information. I'd like to move on now to some of the implementation articles starting with Article 31. I'd like to really commend and welcome the efforts to produce the disability monographs based on census data and surveys. This provides the basis for Kiribati for much deeper policy analysis of the situation of people with disabilities and the measures and budget allocations that are required to address the situation. Are there any plans to undertake this deeper analysis of part of the work across all ministries to identify the necessary actions and resource allocations for a whole of government response?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. Thank you. For information, there has been an increased mainstreaming of disability within all legislative, and we are still working on improving inclusivity of persons with disability within all ministries, action plans, well, workforce, and their especially their budgets. Focusing on the Ministry of MYs, Ministry of Women, Youth, Sports, and Social Affairs. There have been an increased budget that has been allocated for disability only, including in other divisions. We have been very we are making sure that they have included persons with disabilities in their budget as well as their procedures. For your information, there have been a few data that we have collected, unfortunately, due to very limited expertise on data collection. We have received a few data, for example, on a few ministries that have included persons with disabilities in their budgets. However, as of now, we are committed to continue creating awareness to all ministries to ensure that they are committed, and they also include persons with disabilities in their budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd actually like to pick up on that limitations within the data. The disability monograph also identifies some limitations with data collection, and specifically, just as an indicator, it identifies a prevalence rate of disability at 5.6%. And the World Health Organization World Disability Report estimated a 15% prevalence rate of disability worldwide. So this suggests there is some limitations to your data collection, and that it may represent significant underreporting of disability in Kiribati. How are you intending to deal with these limitations within the data? So are the statisticians and enumerators sufficiently experienced in the application of the Washington Group's short set of questions, and how disability is understood within the convention?
Thank you. For your information, we will work closely we will work closely with the National Statistics Office within the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, especially with those who will conduct data collection or household survey. We are targeting the upcoming household visits or data collection that will be done later this year in October, and that's when we are targeting to to do a training to those who will conduct the household survey, especially on the Washington group of questions and other significant areas that were needed to be included in their survey to ensure that we get the right data, integrated data for disability. Thank you.
Very much. I'd like to move to Article 32, international cooperation. I'm extremely aware of the adverse impact of climate change on Kiribati and its effects for the ongoing security and existence of the country. I understand that Kiribati has purchased land in Fiji for the potential relocation of the Kiribati population. How is Kiribati ensuring the needs of people with disability are being included in the plans for relocation? Have organisations of people with disabilities been closely consulted and actively involved in these plans? And are there other agreements, bilateral agreements, being negotiated with other countries for climate migration? And if so, is Kiribati ensuring that these agreements do not discriminate against people with disabilities in being accepted as climate migrants to third-party countries?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mataki. I am working in the Ministry of Justice. In response to your question, the climate change, there is an office of the president that actually handle the climate change issues. And for your information, Kiribati has involved in the International Court of Justice, where we have included the
interpreters apologize, but again, the sound is not allowed for interpretation.
Again, I will repeat my question, the response. In regards to the government policy, the actual exercise, the climate percent, including the land that they are purchasing in Fiji, is still left to the government decision. At this time, we are encouraged to share that the government is encouraging the principle of stay, build, and resilience, meaning that all the people have to stay back in their states and be resilient on climate change. However, there is a mechanism that's being put in place in the integration of the disaster management, which is implemented by the Office of the President. And this has been made and successful by the Kiribati National Group of Experts. This group of experts involve also all NGOs and FBOs, together with the government sectors, and their voice are included in the disaster risk management, which involves the emergencies alerts, and the disabilities are all included within this plan. The government has make a plan regarding to all people are included. The planning that climate change is actually a national-wide issue. And since that we have voiced our concern to the International Court of Justice, and the advisory opinion that been given, the science evidence, which is Kiribati is also affected on sea level rise, erosion, and all the people that are actually affected by, like the disability group and everyone in the states, are all included in the policy of climate change disaster management. With this process, the government is the review and working with the stakeholders in ensuring that integration of the government's plan and policies and legislations are all included, leaving no one behind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We may come back to you for some of that in writing, but in keeping with time, I'd like to move on. The committee has received reports that identify critical gaps and challenges in providing supports and services to people with disabilities, in developing accessible infrastructure, and in protecting rights. Can you clarify if you actively seek donor partnerships and programs that could provide investment and technical assistance to address these areas? For example, such as developing programs for the no-cost distribution and repair of assistive devices, for capacity building for sign language interpreters across all islands, for ensuring accessibility in buildings and transport, and for the development of an anti-discrimination framework.
Thank you for your question. And for your information, we have made a few progress on seeking donor or fundings on few initiatives that will ensure assistance on improving the lives of persons with disability. To catch a few of your areas, for example, in capacity building for sign language interpretation training, we have sought for funding and for information. Fortunately, through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, we have secured funding to conduct capacity building for sign language training. For outer islands, we are targeting our administrative social welfare officers to attend this training on sign language. For framework on anti-discrimination, we are pleased to tell the committee that that is one of our gaps that we will work on to ensure that there is one that will be implemented in the near future. However, that will be parts of our national policy, which will be reviewed for 2025 to 2029. If that's, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it goes in part a way to answering that question, though we would still like to have some understanding of when the review process will finish and the implementation will start to begin on the national plan and disability policy. Just to round up my section of the dialogue, can you update the committee on the outcomes of the discussions with partners, so the South Pacific community, their Human Rights Social Development Division, and other partners on the recommendation for the establishment of a national human rights institution. And in your reply to the list of issues at paragraph 87, you state that the Disabilities Committee is the main mechanism that tracks all activities and implementation of the CRPD. Can you provide more details about this committee, its membership, and how it interacts with the Inclusive Development Unit and the organisations of people with disabilities? And lastly, can you clarify the membership of the National Council of Persons for, National Council for Persons with Disabilities and its role, its relationship to the Disabilities Committee and the Inclusive Disability Unit? Thank you.
Thank you, committee, for the question. In regard to I'll be answering part one of the question in HRI, and that falls on the Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice have, in collaboration, worked with the South Pacific Community, Human Rights and Social Development, and they have been working a scoping mission that has been done by partners, and at the moment the cabinet paper is still left to be done, and more review will be done to the testing of the NHRI, which is still left to the decision of the government. At this time, we have again liaised with the South Pacific Community, which is recently in this month, where they came to Kiribati and conducted training on the Ombudsman as well as the NHRI. And this actually boosted the understanding within the members of parliament and as well as the officials level and our ministers as well. The aim of the awareness is to ensure that everyone understands what is the purpose of the NHRI. And Kiribati is actually in the position of, in a positive way forward to bring the NHRI, but the process and the procedures will need further timing to be considered in the future time. With this, I will hand over the other question to my colleagues. I thank you.
Thank you for the question, and to add on to what my colleagues have discussed in regards to the National Council of Persons with Disability. For your information, this council has been shifted under the National Task Force of Human Rights. However, we are keen to revive this council, but have faced a few challenges with fund to operate the council. In despite of the issues, the Disability Inclusion Division is very much supportive of the council and will assist in the future of revival of the council of the National Council of Persons with Disability. Thank you.
Could I just quickly get some clarification about the difference between the Disability Committee and the National Council and the makeup of the National Council? is it being reconfigured? Now it's moved to the human rights program, or is it remaining with the same membership?
Thank you, committee member, for the question. As of practice at this time, there is a Kiribati National Human Rights Task Force that actually of all three committees within the Ministry of Women's, Sport and Social Affairs. This committee actually work as one body in the focus of reporting, monitoring, and implementations for the conventions, for the three conventions that actually the government has already signed or party to, with the CRC, CRPD, and the NCAT, as well as CEDAW. And since the CRPD is one of the conventions that the government has party to, this falls under the Kiribati National Human Rights Task Force as a member. And during the reporting stage, as we are doing at this stage, all concluding observations that received by the committee will be dealt according to the 8 portfolios of the members of the task force. So for your information, committee member, the task force that is being established by the cabinet in 2012 is now being observing 3 of the committees within the ministry. For that, I thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, and I'll cede the floor back to the chair.
I would like to thank the experts for all their questions and comments, and the representative of the state party for the response and explanations provided. Now call for a 15 minutes break. We will reconvene at 11:40. Thank you so much.
Here no police or they on the music. I wouldn't know.
Anh nó còn méo còn mãi.
I-mute. Ang kanya yan mute. Kung panaw. Iwala di ba namin yan? Yogi.
Inakoray. Muskiray ito pa na.
Okay, tama na.
Yeah, it's 40.
This floor is now open to the non-task force member of the committee and one member of the task force to pose questions to the representative delegation of Kiribati regarding cluster 1, and for the representative of the state party to reply to those questions. Ms. Ketra Popome, you have floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, delegation of Kiribati, with appreciation for the information you have so far given. Please, I have two follow-up questions. One of it is on women and girls with disabilities and their participation. So please, could you further explain, having said that they are involved in some discussions, but our concern is that it's often ad hoc. So what formal mechanism would you please put in place? What measures would you put in place so that formally they would be systematically involved, not only of issues under the Ministry of Women and Social Welfare, but across board, so that their participation in policy formulation and programming would be effective. My next question is on Article 7 on children. And thank you for explaining that issues of children with disabilities are included in all policies and programs. I would like to have some further explanation. To what extent are children having services of early intervention, as an example, and registration, particularly in the outer islands and rural areas? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Amalia Camillo, you have floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to welcome the distinguished delegation from Kiribati. Thank you very much indeed for all of the efforts you're making. I have a question on for the amendment to legislation. You told us that the Attorney General was working on the draft law to amend the ordinance on psychiatric treatment, and that it should be before Parliament back in 2024. I have a couple of comments and questions. It would appear that OPDs were not involved in the review of that legislation. And my second question now is as follows. Given that we are in 2025, I'd like to know whether this reform has in fact taken place. And is it in step with the convention? Is it in line with the principles of the convention? Now, my next question relates to children. In your report, you state that early pregnancies, for the most part, take place amongst girls with disabilities. So I'd like you to tell us about what has happened here, what measures have been taken to prevent this dreadful situation. What measures have been taken so that girls are well informed about sexual and reproductive health so that these early pregnancies are avoided? Thank you.
So much. Ms. Labran Jacob, you have floor.
Thank you, Chair, and a very warm welcome to the delegation from Kiribati. I wanted to ask a question about the optional protocol, and in particular, whether there is an intention to ratify the optional protocol, and if so, what the time frame is before it will be ratified. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Christopher Nauer, you have the.
Good morning, Madam Chair and distinguished delegates. I want to ask more about on Article 8 about awareness raising. So I don't know how much the people of Kiribati have gone in creating awareness in respect of people with disabilities to ensure that people will be aware of what is happening and to avoid discrimination and to inform the general public that they are equally human beings and need to be carried along in the scheme of things. So how much have you gone in creating awareness? Which media? Are you using social media? Are you using electronic media or print media in ensuring that information will be disseminated to ensure that people with disabilities will not be discriminated, and there will be a lot of sensitization programs, conferences and seminars where people will be informed about issues that concerns people with disabilities as related to Article 8 on awareness raising. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. There is no more name plugger for the floor. So I would like to invite the delegation of the, Kiribati to respond. Delegation, can you hear me? Please respond to the questions.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. And I would like to respond to the second part of the question that was asked by the first member, committee member, regarding children. And with the question, Madam, the committee and task force, Kiribati is committed to ensure equal and timely access to justice for all in accordance with its human rights obligations in remote and outer islands. This is achieved through mobile court circuits and other service providers, and the appointed of trained local magistrates and police officers, and community-based disputes resolution mechanisms supported by the Ministry of Justice. Geographic isolation is addressed through coordinated inter-island transport for judicial services and the gradual expansion of virtual hearings where connectivity permits. The language rights are safeguarded as well by using trained local interpreters, while legal literacy is strengthened through island-based awareness. Campaigns delivered in collaboration with the civil society and island councils. These measures collectively uphold fairness, non-discrimination, and the protection of rights, ensuring that remoteness does not create the barriers to justice. Kiribati ensures equal access to justice across all the islands through mobile court service, as I already mentioned, but this is just for your information to train local magistrates and the transport and virtual hearings where feasible. Thank you, Madam. I will now give the floor to my other colleagues who will answer for the other questions.
In relation to the second part of the question, which is related to the mechanisms for women, from the Women's Development Division, as I already mentioned before, we have a gender equality and women's development policy. And The policy aims to ensure that the government of Kiribati fulfills the expectation of its people, both men and women, boys and girls, through providing equal opportunities, equal human rights, and equal access to services so that everyone can reach their potential in economic, political, cultural, and social life. Um, the national policy also the vision of the gender equality policy is that for all Kiribati men and women reach their full potential. And the gender equality and women's development policy also have 5 priority areas, which should the progressively implement a gender mainstreaming approach to achieve gender equality, and also to improve the economic empowerment of women, and to support stronger informed families, and to improve women's political representation and leadership, as well as to eliminate sexual and gender-based violence. I thank you, Madam Chair. The next representative is from the Ministry of Health and Medical Services that will present a statement. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Because thank you, Madam Chair and the committee members for the question. I'm going to answer the question on the mental health view. First of all, my name is Dr. Tove Smith. I work at the head of the mental health department in the Ministry of Health and Medical Services. The Kiribati has made a significant stride in addressing mental health. The Kiribati National Health and Strategic Plan 2024 and 27 outlines 6 strategic priorities, including strategic priority 3, which focuses on promoting health lifestyles and reducing preventable morbidity, mortality, and disability related to non-communicable diseases and mental health. Under this priority, strategic objective 3.5 aims to increase access to mental health awareness programs and decrease suicide. To support this objective, the mental health bill was drafted in 2022 to modernize the Kiribati mental health legislations and align with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. The bill has 16 objectives, which include respecting, protecting, and promoting human rights for persons with mental health conditions and psychological disabilities. The mental health bill has 16 objectives, which say to promote and fulfill the aims and objectives of the Kiribati National Mental Health Policy as determined from time to time, and to respect, protect, promote the human right of persons with mental health conditions and psychological disabilities, guarantee equality before the law, and promote compliance with the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities, including allowances, supported for decision-making in their mental health care, and protection from cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatments. And also to facilitate quality mental health care, support and treatment of persons with mental health conditions within families and in the community on a voluntary basis, and to ensure people who have a mental health conditions are provided the best possible treatment and care with the least possible restriction of their freedom and within the least possible interference with their rights and with respect for their dignity. And to facilitate care of a patient with a mental health condition that is consistent as far as possible with the views and preferences of that individual. And to support families and communities where they are providing care of a patient with a mental health condition. and to encourage families, carers, and communities to accept their responsibilities in providing the best care and support for patients with mental health conditions, and to promote the recovery and rehabilitation of patients with mental health conditions and their ability to participate on equal basis of all levels of society, and to ensure integration of mental health care into general health care at levels and of the care of the system, and that of all patients with mental health conditions receive high quality of care, the equal standards of general health patients, and to ensure that there are adequate human resources to meet the multidisciplinary workforce needs of mental health services, appropriate facilities available, and a satisfactory budget allocation to meet the objectives of this Act, and to assist and encourage non-governmental organizations and other agencies to support the facilitation of the traditional, cultural, and religious values of Kiribati, and to provide access to pharmaceutical and other treatment options for mental health conditions based on internationally accepted standards, and to promote a positive change in attitude toward mental health conditions through effective mental health promotion activities that increase the knowledge and understanding of mental health among Kiribati, and to support research into the prevention and treatment of mental health conditions, and to promote and support the high quality standard of training for all police and correctional officers who are responsible for the care and custody of patients with mental health conditions, and to support the traditions of care in involuntary care settings to allow for the reduction of use of seclusion and restraint, and to meet policy objectives of reducing this use to zero in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite again Ms. Cases, Rosemary Cases.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our colleagues in Kiribati for their responses. What I would really like you to do is focus on the actual questions that are asked. We realise you may have pre-prepared notes and have information that you wish to give the committee, but these are follow-up questions that my colleagues are asking around cluster 1. So if we can try and move away from a bit of the descriptive answers and focus on the question that's asked, and you can give us a bit of analysis of what's happening at the moment. So if we could go back to the last couple of follow-up questions that were asked, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can see 2 more name pluggers from the floor. Mr. Geller Dondorf, you have floor.
So, thank you, Chair. So I have questions under Article 9. So to what extent the accessibility features are being considered in the public procurement? So I would like to know whether you have any specific regulations to ensure that every public procurement is considered the accessibility features. The second question is again about the accessibility of information and communication. Also would like to know whether you have any specific measures or legislations to ensure that accessibility of the public websites. How do you ensure their accessibility? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leah Bosley, you have floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيسة وشكرا لوفد كاريباس.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you also to the delegation from Kiribati. The government has provided responses to the list of issues. And you did mention awareness raising of the Convention at all levels of society. This means that information needs to be provided about human rights, including the rights of persons with disabilities. And in the responses, you mentioned the technical support received through assistance provided by the OHCHR and the Disability Forum in the South Pacific, and also UNICEF. This has enabled the state to draw up the report and to make headway in terms of education. In 2014, 2 training sessions took place with children's schools, children with disabilities. The aim was to raise awareness of children about education, and also 2 training sessions in 2015 with various stakeholders. This related to the convention. Workshops were also held to raise awareness of the convention with the participation of officials from ministries and municipal councils, as well as other stakeholders. This also related to the outer islands. In 2015, you gave greater importance to persons with disabilities so that they can be included in natural disasters and manage the consequences of climate change. We would like to know about the number of people with disabilities and the number of organizations representing them who have taken part in those training sessions. Could you tell us about your strategy looking towards the future in terms of awareness raising at the grassroots community level? I'd also like to know what measures have been taken so as to combat stigmatization and harmful practices, as well as cultural stereotypes. And here I'm thinking of disability. And I'd like to know what you are doing to combat discrimination against persons with disabilities based on age and other factors, and what mechanisms are in place to guarantee the effectiveness and efficiency of those mechanisms. Thank you.
Gracias, Presidenta. Buenos días.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to very warmly thank the delegation that is here today with us for this dialogue. And I recognize the very great efforts they're making to do so. Now, I have a question for you. As part of your strategic planning, do you also address the issue of barriers and the possible trauma that could be caused by a change in the territory or in the environment for persons with disabilities? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to invite the delegation again. This segment will be until 12:10. So please respond within the time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And according to our Ministry of Infrastructure data, features which are considered in our regulation are yet to commence, as unfortunately right now we are still in draft mode of amending our regulations for 2025. But our existing regulation for building code and building act assures that all building public procurement infrastructure are addressed and monitored by by the Division of Quality Control and Inspection Division, and they assess what is imported into the country, which can help improve infrastructure to also facilitate people with disability. I'll hand over to my colleagues for further answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Committee members, for your question. In regards to combating stigma and cultural stereotypes, in regards to persons with disabilities, there are several there have been significant improve in awareness for people with disability. However, there are a few there are a few cultural practices that were in place that we are still facing challenges in trying to raise awareness for people with disability. For example, one of the culture stereotypes includes the standard building design of a manebe, or a building of a manebe where the meeting were usually held. This in most of the, especially in the rural or the outer islands, these manebe usually have their roof close to the ground or lower to the ground, to portray respect. However, since such buildings were not permanent but can be improvised, we are still looking and we are still working on progress on how to positively impact the culture stereotypes in order for persons with disabilities are included and are recognized, and advocates for such persons were included in all areas, either in the rural or the urban areas. If that answers the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we will proceed with the first round of back-to-back question and answers regarding Cluster 2. I will now call upon member of the task force to start the round of questions for Article 10 to 20, and the delegation will have the opportunity to respond immediately after the question have been raised. This segment will last 40 minutes until 12:50. Mr. Hiroshi Tamon, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am proud and honoured to be part of the task force to examine the state of play with Kiribati, and I really appreciate the States Party's efforts in harmonising the objective and purpose of the Convention with your domestic laws. I look forward to asking you some questions to support these efforts and to engage in this meaningful dialogue. Due to the time constraints, I will be asking the questions in a concise manner, and I would appreciate a concise answer. First, in respect to Article 11, situations of risk and humanitarian emergencies. And this is in reference to paragraph 26 of the State Party's reply. The State report indicates in the 53rd section that the KNDP commits the government to review the KJIP to assess its inclusiveness of people with disabilities. So my first question is, would you provide information on how far this assessment has progressed? And are persons with disabilities able to participate in all of these strategies? My second question in respect of Article 11 is, would you explain what measures have been taken to ensure the protection of lives and safety of persons with disability in situations of risk? For example, are shelters accessible, and are there accessible communication channels? This is specifically in relation to replies to the list of issues in reference to paragraph 24 and 25. And question 3, in respect of Article 11, would you provide information on what measures have been taken for ensuring international cooperation in order to ensure the protection of the lives and safety of persons with disabilities during situations of risk? I look forward to your answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite the delegation from Kiribati.
Madam Chair and esteemed committee, I thank you for the question. My name is Nasutaka Helen, and I am a community policing officer with the Kiribati Police Service. The Kiribati Police Service, with joint activities with our stakeholders, have implemented an initiative to ensure disability response programs and services, including the mainstreaming disability inclusion in climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction, active engagement with the Kiribati National Expert Group, comprising with governments, NGO, FPOs, and external technical experts for the implementation of climate change for disabilities for state of emergencies for evacuation and fire alerts in their own communities and also to address the absence of specific policies on relief distribution to persons with disabilities during emergencies. Kiribati has included assistive products to persons with disabilities, APDs, in the Kiribati humanitarian warehouse, repositioned stock, develop a community disaster risk management CBDRM training manual, integrating gender and disability inclusion. In 2023, our team visited 6 northern islands, conducting consultations and training on disaster risk reduction and emergency evacuation, including practical activities like fire drills and evacuation procedures. We engaged with island councils, elderly people, counselors, young people, women, and persons with sensory impairment. The training received positive feedback, with communities expressing gratitude for being equipped with knowledge on disaster risks and emergency evacuation. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Hiroshi Tamon, you have floor again.
Thank you for your responses to the answer. Obviously, as time is limited, I'll move on to the next article, Article 12, Equal Recognition Before the Law. My first question is, would you provide information on the measures taken to establish supported decision-making mechanisms for persons with disabilities and to develop safeguards to ensure that supported decision-making ensure what mechanisms have ensured that there is equal recognition before the law for persons with disability? In relation to question 2, would you explain what measures have been taken for persons with disability to maintain their property and inherit property, and what processes are involved? And question 3, would you provide information on measures taken to involve persons with disability into legislative processes to establish supported decision-making mechanisms for persons with disability? Thank you. I look forward to your responses.
Thank you. I would like to invite again delegations from Kiribati.
Mary again. In response to the question in relation to inheritance involving people with disabilities, they are well protected and covered by our laws at the moment. We have the native lands that regulate inheritance and passing of property, and they are also included as issues if their parents or their next of kin are passed away. The properties will then pass on to the surviving children and next of kin. Thank you, and I will pass it to the next speaker.
I would like to invite again Mr. Hiroshi Tamon to give the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allow me to repeat my questions. The first question was in regards to supported decision-making mechanisms. What process have you established to ensure that there is supported decision-making mechanisms for a person with disabilities? Could you address that question, please?
Delegation of the Kiribati Would you respond to this question?
Thank you for the question. For information, within the Ministry of Women, Youth, Sports and Social Affairs, our division, Disability Inclusion Division, have been working hard to ensure that people with disability are supported within decision-making mechanisms. For information, we have, in accordance with the policy that we are reviewing, we have included the importance of people with disability in decision making to ensure that they are consulted, informed, and involved in any progress or decision that will be made either directly or indirectly to them. However, this will be part of our progress, as this will be part of our progress, which we will address in our policy, and we truly support the engagements of persons with disability in decision making at all levels, either local or governments. However, one of our mechanism is through the OPDs, where any decision making that is being done will be through the organizations of people with disability, especially the umbrella body, the DOMETA, and then from there to the legislative bodies that will be developed. Thank you for the question. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much, distinguished representative. That was a very clear explanation. In the interests of time, I'll move on to my questions in relation to Article 13, access to justice. I only have one question for this article. Would you provide information on measures taken to address the establishment of legislation on accessibility to justice for persons with disability, including physical access to buildings and alternative means of communication throughout the judicial process, ensuring and securing the effective participation of all persons with disabilities within the justice system? I look forward to your answer.
Delegations of Kiribati, you have floor. Delegation of the Kiribati, we cannot hear from you. We cannot hear you. Would you speak to the mic?
Hello?
Yes, now it is okay.
Will better be answered by the judiciary representative, but we'll try our best to answer that. We have carried out the building audits, and the findings indicate that most of the older buildings require renovation to meet the standards of inclusive and accessible design. Furthermore, our new building code has incorporated inclusively provisions mandating that all buildings be designed and constructed to be accessible, particularly for people with disabilities. Mainstreaming CRPD principles into our legislation is a key priority area under our Kiribati National Disability Policy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hiroshi Taman, you have floor.
Thank you. There are more questions in terms of communication access within the justice system. Could you provide clarity on how people with disabilities have clear communication within judicial processes?
Delegation, you have floor.
Thank you for the question. In regards to accessible communication, we have tried our best to increase accessible communication, especially in the channel of service providers. In regards to not only for the judge or the judicial services, we have planned to include all of the service providers, especially frontline services providers, to conduct a few trainings, for example, a sign language training, which have been we have sought funding and secured a fund with DFATs. That will be parts of our work plan for this year. And I'm pleased to inform you that one of our training will be on sign language for those who provide a service for all people, not only to disability, but all across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegation, for your clear explanation. Moving on to Article 14, liberty and security of the person. My first question is, would you explain what measures have been taken to repeal from law any proceedings according to which persons with disabilities are declared unfit to plead to a criminal charge? Or incapable or exempt from criminal prosecution? Or any responsibility, including those that result in security measures or any form of deprivation of liberty. And this legislation includes sections 144 and 246 of the Criminal Procedure Code and section 5 of the Constitution. My second question is, could you provide more up-to-date information on measures taken to bring existing legislation, such as Chapter 56 on the mental treatment of laws of the Gilbert Islands Revised Edition 1977? What updates have you engaged in? And question 3, would you explain the legislation that has been taken to abolish involuntary or forced institutionalizations, where the imposition of the restriction or seclusions of persons with disabilities on the basis of actual or perceived implementation? And this is during the revision of Chapter 56 on mental treatment. I look forward to your responses on these specific questions. Thank you.
Delegation of the Kiribati, you have floor to response.
Hello, Madam Chair, and the committee members. As I previously explained the objectives of the mental health bill, so the mental health, treatment ordinance 1977 has been just planned to be replaced by the development of the Mental Health Act 2022, which is now is called the Mental Health Bill, which is now awaiting for 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 finalization and endorsements by the Parliament. There is actions that has been made that there is a plan for this Mental Health Act to be included in this November also Parliament. But and that's what we're working on, just to make sure the Mental Health Bill is endorsed to become the Mental Act. So in relation to your question on involuntary treatments, as I mentioned in the act on the objective 16, the mental health bill says to support the transition of care in involuntary care settings to allow for the reduction of use of seclusion and restraint to meet policy objectives and reducing to use to zero in the future. So what have we done to do that? We have a training, we call the case-based training. Just the CRPD safe practice and effective communication. That's where we train all the mental health staff, doctors, nurses, emergency staff, doctors and nurses, police officers, and the correctional staff, and even the community members. So in the training, we train them to use this. So in the training, we try to use use the communication skills to escalate the patient, especially aggressive ones, instead of we put them in the in a seclusion or a restraint measures. And this we conducted at least 3 trainings last year, and we hope to conduct another 3 training this year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hiroshi Tamian, would you go to the next question?
Thank you very much for that detailed response. In terms of the criminal procedure code, has that also been changed? As a follow-up question, could you answer that?
In response to that question, the criminal procedure code is still as it is, even though there are a few amendments to some provisions, but the act itself is still there. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much. Yes. That's a very clear response. Thank you. Moving on to Article 15, freedom from torture or cruel, inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. My first question is, could you provide updated information on the process of revising the mental health treatment ordinance that allows for institutionalization on the basis of disability? It would be useful to have updates on that process. Is that still the case, that on the basis of disability, people can be institutionalized?
Madam Chair and the committee, thank you for the question. I think I've explained more on that before, but in terms of the admission of someone with a psychiatric illness or psychological disability, in the mental health PPU, it has in the involuntary patient involuntary inpatient admission and also voluntary inpatient admission. What's the difference is voluntary inpatient admission is where the person with psychological disabilities brought himself to the facility and request for admission for treatments in case he doesn't have he cannot look after himself or herself in the community. On the other hand, involuntary admission, inpatient admission, it states that when a person with a psychological disability become aggressive and violently in the community, in the sense that his mental health condition will be getting worse if it doesn't receive the treatments and care as provided in the facility, or the patient with a psychological disability became a threat to himself and the community, then it requires admission to the facility against his will. And that's where it goes involuntary admission, inpatient admission. That's where we're going to provide the treatment and the care for that person. It will require at least 3 months of admission in the facility. Within that 3 months, the patient will become stable and become and become safe to be released into the community and take the treatment. As part of the mental health bill, we also established a community treatment order. So which means when the patient is safe to receive treatment in the community, it can be released from the facility and continue with medication or medication in the community under the supervision of his family and carers. We also established a mental health outreach team in which we can provide the service to go and do assessment and review and provision of medication to those who has been treated under the community treatment order. We not only do this to those live on the mainland, we also have an outreach team that deploys to outer highlands 2 or 3 times a year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your clear explanation. I think other committee members may wish to explore that in further detail later. Moving on to Article 16, freedom from exploitation, violence and abuse. My first question is, could you provide more updated information on the process of reviewing the Te Rao Nte Mwanga Family Peace Act of 2014, focusing on protecting women and girls of persons with disability? And this is in reference to paragraph 38 of your reply. And question 2, could you explain measures taken to enforce the Act in practice? Assuming that there has been revisions, what does that look like in practice? Thank you.
Delegations, you have floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. In regards to the question of Teramtemea, if you could, we could ask the committee that we could provide a written statement to answer the question, please. And I give it over to my colleague to address the abuse to children. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kota Committee member for the question. And in addition to the question around the Mayanga Act, I wish to add on the protection of children with disabilities from abuse and violence. Kiribati remains committed to progressively equitable for all persons with the disabilities and will continue to work with international an international framework to ensure inclusive protection mechanisms for all the survivors of the crime. Right now, within the MWISA with the Social Welfare Division, we have in place the Act where it protects all children with disabilities. And within the Act, we have the referral pathway developed, and that pathway responds to all forms of violence against children under 18, and they are being dealt with, and the response or the response to the abuse are being complied, and that pathway is used to protect all children, and that includes children with disabilities. Thank you. I now
Thank you very much for your clear explanation. Moving on to, oh, excuse me one moment.
Mr. Tamon, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for your clear explanation. Next, we move on to Article 17, protecting the integrity of the person. My first question is, would you provide more information on the process to prohibit any form of non-consensual treatment or detention on the basis of a psychiatric diagnosis, including moving away from institutional care to community-based care, and ensuring that all mental health services are provided on the basis of free and informed consent? And question 2, would you explain whether an independent review mechanism is established to monitor and protect the right to respect, quality and equal treatment and autonomy in medical treatment for people with disabilities? Thank you.
Delegations, you have floor.
Hello, Madam Chair and the committee members. Thank you for the question again. Okay, so as I explained before, in the mental health field, it has inpatient treatment order, involuntary and voluntary. So the criteria for patient to be under inpatient treatment order, the criteria, it says the person has diminished decision-making capacity due to a mental condition, and the person is unwilling or unable to receive care, support, treatment, or protection for the mental health condition on a voluntary basis. The person appears to have a serious diminished capacity to take care of himself and herself, and as a result of the mental health condition, the patient requires care, support and treatment or protection in the interest of the patient, to protect another person or persons, and the care, support, and treatment or protection required under paragraph that I mentioned before is available and cannot be provided in a less restrictive manner, including but not limited to a community treatment order, and uh, that's under an inpatient order. Which means that when the patient admitted under this order, it it was very aggressive and very hallucinating in the case that it meets the criteria that I stated in this inpatient involuntary treatment order. So we also provide consent to the family that accompanied the patient. If the patient is become more stable and able to give consent and is safe to treat it in the community, then the community treatment order is applied. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for your response. One more question. How are you reviewing or monitoring the situation? And are disabled people involved in that monitoring process?
The process, and then this way. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, how we monitor those patients that has been treated in the facility. Well, once the patient is stable and released or discharged to the community for treatment under the supervision of their families, usually the patient and the family has to bring back that person after 2 weeks to attend our review clinic. We have a separate outpatient clinic. We go to the KTM and Kaskun the Meron Clinic, and that's where we do the follow-up and monitoring. If the patient and the family are unable to come to the clinic for review, we have a home visiting team where they can go and visit the patient and review and monitor if the condition is improved or the medication need to be adjusted. And
you.